Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Roads and Bridges webcast. In recognition of National Work Zone Awareness Week, and with it being Go Orange Day, we have a great webcast in store for you. Our topic is the future of work zone management, sponsored by the American Traffic Safety Services Association, aka ATSSA. I'm Gavin Jenkins, Senior Managing Editor of Roads and Bridges, and I will be moderating this session. Before we dive into today's presentation, let me explain how you can engage with us during the webinar. If you encounter any technical issues, please type your concern into the Ask a Question, and a member of our team will assist you. We also encourage you to submit your questions through the event. We will address as many as possible during the Q&A session after the main presentation, but feel free to send in questions at any time using the Ask a Question box. To refer a colleague to today's webcast, share it on social media, or access event resources, click on the icons on the left side rail of your screen. Lastly, please note that today's session is being recorded and will be available on the Roads and Bridges website within the next week. You will receive an email notification once the recording is live. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker. Neil Boudreau serves as the Assistant Administrator of Traffic Safety and State Traffic Engineer for the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Highway Division. He has been with MassDOT since 1995, serving in many roles within the traffic operations and safety management groups. In his current position, Neil represents MassDOT as a member of the AASHTO Committee on Safety, and is currently serving as the Vice Chair of the Committee on Traffic Engineering. It's great to have you with us today, and we are excited to learn more about how MassDOT is transforming roadway safety. So now we'll go ahead and turn things over to you. Neil, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Kevin, and good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll show a little bit about how Massachusetts Department of Transportation is modernizing work zone management with our enhanced Work Zone Manager application. Sorry, jumped ahead 2 slides. So a little bit of the outline for today's discussion. Just gonna learn more about what we mean by work zone management, discuss the lane closure system, how we integrate impact analysis tool, and then a little bit about our connected work zones and how we use that to validate planned work zone. Let's start with first asking the question, why is work zone management important? The data speaks for itself. Other than dropping a bit during the post-COVID year of 2021, the number of fatalities involving workers on the roadway shot back up to a highest number in 2022. And I venture a guess that this level has not changed for 23 and 24. And looking at the types of events resulting in fatalities on our roadway construction sites, the worker on foot is clearly the greatest risk. But more than a quarter of people are still dying while inside of a vehicle while out in the work zone. They are seemingly thinking that they are protected. However, they are still being struck and killed. This is designed to end this horrible tragedy. Just a quick recap, National Work Zone Awareness Week that Kevin mentioned. Today is Go Orange Day. I hope that everyone, like myself, is wearing their orange today. Tomorrow is Social Media opportunity to share stories and statistics about why work zone safety is so important and why we need to keep workers safe. Finally, on Friday, pause for a brief moment to remember the lives of those that were lost out on the roadways and hope that that number never increases. Our workers deserve to go home each day to visit their family and friends. So what is MassDOT doing to better manage our work zones? Our goal with this effort is to make the working conditions as safe as possible for those working out on the roadways and for the public traveling through them. We want to have one centralized system to integrate both traditional and work zones and have a means to monitor exactly what work is going on out on the roadways. This effort has evolved as we moved into the development of a work zone data exchange specification and data feed. What is the purpose of our work zone manager application today? We want to have the ability to gather work zone data from a number of different sources and combine them into one uniform data set. This will allow us to plot the various work zone limits into our state mapping layer and show where we have the different shoulder and lane closure work going on. This will improve the quality of the data that we capture and be more consistent when we have actual events going on. The goal is to provide this data in a standard format to any and all third-party mapping companies, get this out to the public as an end user by any means possible, including our 511 system and pushing this into connected vehicles. We currently produce a work zone data exchange feed version 4.1, but we'll be soon updating to meet the new Department connected work zone standard. Ultimately, we can use this data and performance metrics to improve on work zone operations and safety. The Work Zone Manager app is not only web-based, but it's a mobile-friendly interface as well. This allows our field staff to make adjustments as needed. Some of the key features include it's a one-stop shop to configure, manage, and monitor works across the state. We can view any of the portable ITS devices that we have deployed in the field that we're using to capture what's called the device feed. We have built-in reporting functions that allows the integration of all planned events and allows the user to not only view what is coming, but also to go historical data. Focus at our boots on the ground level is the ability to create lane closure requests and validate these requests with real-time feedback. Thus, portable ITS devices in the field, when active, can be used to link planned events and validate closure. At the end of the day, it is all about having quality data and field verified work zone data exchange feed updated on a minute-by-minute basis. This has a lot of information, but the key takeaways is that we accept data from 4 primary sources. The end user link requests, so those are coming in from our resident engineers, our field construction staff. Then we have the device feed information from the field. So if we have devices, work zone ITS devices, so to speak, out in the field, we have that information that we are capturing in a real-time format. We also have other event data that is programmed directly through our operations center using what's called the Everbridge system. And then we have lane closures by time of day restrictions based on traffic volumes and project impact. This information, I'll explain a little bit later, helps us to better plan. We can actually go out and take lanes on the roadway system. As mentioned, the output slide provides a fully compliant work zone data exchange 4.1 feed that can be pushed to third-party end users, and a user-friendly map-based interface for our work zone forces to monitor what is happening out on the roadways at all times. One of the main functions of the Work Zone Manager software is the lane closure request and approval workflow. It is a web user interface for entry of closure request, what we call planned work zone data. The users of the system, it's all based on inventory data mapping components, which uses GIS for accurate location information. We've built in a number of checks and balances to prevent any incorrect data entry. It allows for the end user to schedule reoccurring events. So in other words, if you're going to be taking the same number of lanes Monday through Thursday that week, it's easy for the data entry person to select that rather than having to go in and create something new for each day. The key is to have automatic valid against lane closure restrictions based on the number of days and the time of day. And the system provides visual warnings of these conflicts with any nearby events or when we have a restriction based on the time of day. Also note that the conflicts with nearby events is configurable, but we currently set it as a baseline 1 mile radius. Some more details on the lane closure request tool. We wanted to make it user-friendly and not overly burdensome to use. That being said, it's based on the required fields needed to meet what's required is the work zone data exchange feed and to be able to produce a high quality feed. So this was explained to our construction forces, and we reconfigured the software as we were developing it to make it more user-friendly for them to understand and input, and to accelerate the process for them. One of the key aspects that we went through was tying it into MassDOT's mapping layer so that it automatically snaps to the roadway geometry based on the location data entered, such as like milepost. We currently use milepost a lot to define our limits of work, which is an easy to use tool for our field staff, and it automatically will snap to that roadway. And we also have the mapping layer, which identifies nearby planned events, and that allows us to flag anything that violates any of the restrictions that I mentioned earlier. The success with this system is the requirement that construction personnel program their lane closure requests. We're started with focusing on construction, but many of our maintenance projects that are specific locations will be using the software as well. And having a defined approval process where there are checks and balances built in to prevent conflicts on the number of lanes being closed by the time of day, these restrictions is necessary to ensure that we do not overlap. Trail is also available with automated warnings of conflicts, restrictions that violate the time of day use or the number of lanes, helps to make it far easier for the people that are reviewing these requests. And finally, we are just finishing the development of an automated warning for geospatial conflicts that are displayed on the map, not instantaneously flagged to the person entering the request. We want to make it as simple as possible for those that are entering the request and kick it back to them if there is a potential for a conflict before they even submit. So here we have a list view, and I know there's a lot of data on this page, of a number of lane closures. This allows us to kind of sort and slice the data into any way, shape, or form to help us better check on what we have going on. We have some things in there currently that are entered directly into the Workzone Manager tool, and some that we are currently porting over from our Everbridge system, which is what our operations center uses. However, starting in early May, all 5 of our 6 districts will be 100% utilization of the Workzone Manager tool. The last district does more of a bidding system, and we're currently working on a mechanism to bring them over, which probably will not happen until 2026. And the last column on this page, which I know, again, I know it's hard to see, just has the status. So the individuals that are charged with reviewing and approving the different lane closure requests that come in will have the ability just to go and quickly look to see when there's something that's in the system that has not been approved yet. Running in parallel with Workzone Manager, we've also been working with Kittleson and Associates to create a Workzone impact analysis tool. This is a tool that is based on the FreeVal model, which incorporates the highway capacity software. It analyzes volumes and capacity on our interstates and freeways during times of the day. It allows our districts to more effectively review the lane closure requests and determine when we can extend work hours to help accelerate construction. Currently, Arcadis, who is the developer of our Workzone Manager tool, is taking this data directly from Kittleson and importing it into the lane closure request tool. Some more details on the impact analysis tool. It's based on our statewide traffic volume flow profiles, for our interstate and freeway network, and has very, very detailed segmentation. Every time there is a change in the road cross section, a new ramp is introduced, whether it's an on-ramp or exit ramp, if there's an auxiliary lane, all of this stuff is segmentation, so we can get very detailed when defining the work zone limits. Volume to capacity ratios to better determine and adjust the time of day and the number of lanes that can be taken on any segment of roadway. For example, we can determine at what time only the shoulder may be closed on a particular roadway, and then subsequently, at what time can you then take a single lane off of that? We have the tool built with defined rules for certain roadway types based on either time of day restrictions or in some cases, as granular as specific segments based on known conditions that we have in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Here is an example of the back-end data that Kittleson developed for MassDOT to allows us to be able to dig into the projected impacts on a specific roadway segment based on the hour of day. If you take a note, the base conditions are on the left side of this figure. And as you can see, the red area will show basically heat map technology. What would happen if we start to take a lane out of service at certain times of day, and how bad that queue would back up and extend beyond the segmentation reviewed. This allows us to determine at what time can we contain that queue within a designated segmentation area and manage the expectation of motorists driving through without having unnecessary significant delays. So we use this data coupled with certain thresholds, and that will allow us to determine the time we can do allowable lane closures in the roadway system. The actual work zone impact analysis tool was initially being developed as a design tool that would allow internal employees as well as our design consultants to evaluate different work zone scenarios as to how to build the project and schedule the work. This will still take place. The expectation is that our designers and our internal design staff will be looking at this, providing that as a suggestion, as part of the bid package that goes to contractors. Contractors like to change means and methods. We'll at least have a starting point, and then working with our construction office, they'll make the determination of when and where they'll take lane closures. But in theory, it's all based on what should be coming out of the design. We also developed a series of metrics, basically of shoulder and lane closures, and evaluate different scenarios where it's short-term work, long-term work, based on the capacity of each roadway scenario. And the scenarios also take a look at what would the condition be on the roadway if it was a hard fixed work zone behind barrier, or if it was using traditional cones and drums. So a little bit more detailed for the designers to get into. Now I'm going to talk a little bit of our connected work zone specification. We are currently launching a new specification that will require for all freeways and interstates the use of connected work zone devices. What this will do is this will allow us the ability to be able to validate a planned work zone by having a connected device out in the field. These connected devices include work zone location markers, which are used to identify the spatial extents of the work zone, typically what would be a start and end marker. However, if you did have a change configuration, you may have some interim location markers. A connected arrow board, which is used to transmit the location for that lane closure and display the status with lane, right lane closure, and so forth. We have dynamic work zone speed limit assembly to space the work zone speed limit on a hybrid speed limit sign and transmits a location in the current speed limit display status. And then we have your more traditional work zone speed limit assembly that's used frequently that has a speed feedback plaque. So initially you will announce what the change in speed limit will be as you approaching the work area, and then within the work area we're using the speed feedback sign to basically remind drivers that they need to be compliant. Right now, with our automated validation process, a planned work zone that has ITS devices such as a start and end markers, connected arrow board, and a dynamic speed sign, that information will be then consumed by our work zone manager, and we digitally mapping the work zone operations. We're hoping that third-party users will now be getting a validated planned work zone, but also getting more specific information that allows them to push that detail out to the end users on the roadway. This is a typical application drawing that was provided to give the design engineer as well as the contractor an ability to understand how these connected equipment shall be included into the traditional static temporary traffic control device layout. This happens to be just a shoulder and single right lane closure on a multi-lane divided highway. However, we have drawings that will accommodate different types of lane closure applications. MassDOT has secured 4 contractors to help participate in this connected work zone pilot that is kicking off this year. Our construction industry in Massachusetts and the Massachusetts Aggregate and Asphalt Pavement Association are working with us to support this effort. For the pilot locations, we have identified contractors in different geographic areas and doing different types of projects, all that will have what we call routine nightly lane closures. So we'll have the ability to test out the system and how it's operating. We did have some contractors express a concern about cell coverage, which is one of the reasons why I made sure that we covered geographic areas. And I will pilot will be funded through an extra work order that has federal highway support. As part of our connected work zone pilot, MassDOT will also be looking to evaluate connected vests. We are partnering with a work zone safety solutions provider in this effort. These are not currently part of our connected work zone notification specification. However, we want to test them out through the use of dynamic speed limit. So in other words, we want to only set the speed limit on work zone when we have physical workers present. Rather than just setting that work zone speed limit duration, we want it to be where the greatest risk is. We're looking to have at least 2 of these connected vests for each of the different 4 projects. The intent would be to have a crew represent one of the vests and where their location is. So what are our next steps for us at MassDOT? We obviously want to get more data and more feedback from piloting our connected work zone specification. As such, we want to continue to test out the automated device association process before we expand to other types of roadways. As I mentioned, we are focusing on interstates and freeways at this time. This construction season, we have 5 of our 6 districts are coming online and being operational with their lane closure request tool. And the end goal is to have that data captured to help us produce performance reports that will help us meet the requirements of the work zone safety and mobility rule. And finally, the last goal and the most important goal is to publish a high quality data feed, and hopefully soon the connected work zone standard feed, to let the public know where our workers are out on the roadway and where they need to be cognizant of their speeds and paying attention. Here is my contact information if you'd like to learn more details on our system. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Gavin for questions.
All right. Okay. So thank you for that great presentation, and thank you for sharing your insight. We've already received several questions, so let's dive right into the Q&A. If you would like to submit a question, simply type it into the Ask a Question box and then click Send. All right, so let's get to it. All right. My understanding is that law enforcement is still required to work. We're still required in work zones in Massachusetts, including the local street network. Does law enforcement at your TMCs have access to the system?
Well, yes, we still are a predominantly law enforcement based state in our work zone. Police details are not 100% requirement like they used to be. We are currently not sharing this information with right now. It's only internal. However, where it's a web-based application, we would have the ability to share information. For the most part, the speed limit changes are part of an official regulatory process. We have the ability to change the speed limits in construction work zones. So having a notification that sends at what time did we change that speed limit and what time is it going back to the regulatory speed limit for the roadway, not in construction, we'll need to share that information with law enforcement. But currently we don't have any plans to let them in just yet. We want to test it first.
Sounds good. Okay. Next question, is the Work Zone Manager tool something MassDOT licenses from a vendor, or did MassDOT develop it? If it's MassDOT developed, are you willing to share the app?
That's a great question. It is not a system that we have licensed. It was something we have built from scratch, and it's, to be honest, it started. The company's name was KCUS. They were bought out by IBI and now bought out by Arcadis. However, it is an open source tool. So currently, Wisconsin DOT is using the lane closure request application. So we have shared with Wisconsin. Florida, one of the regions in Florida is using it, and we are in talks right now with Maine DOT about expanding up there. And the whole goal is to make it such that it's publicly available, or anybody that wants to use it. You could customize it for your particular needs, and if you add a benefit that is of interest to the other states or other entities, we all get access to it. So it's meant to try to help everyone.
Okay, next question. What is the actual benefit of being able to show this data on a map-based interface?
Part of the focus when we first started developing it, it was getting the exact roadway geometries, so good fine limits of work. We have a small state, but we have 6 districts in Massachusetts, and the overlap of projects and the influence of one district's project into another may not have the best communication. So by showing all the work zone projects on a mapping interface is a fit. Plus, the bridge inspection unit that needs to close lanes to do some bridge inspection may not be communicating with the construction office, who may not communicate with the maintenance office. Now everyone's playing in the same level field. They all can see where each one is, and it also opens the opportunity to piggyback. So if someone's taking the left lanes on a particular area, maintenance might be able to sneak in there and get some work done as well. So we're trying to be more efficient, with our work, as well as give the public a benefit by not having multiple setups conflicting.
All right. Understanding the premise behind your Work Zone Manager application, but why is this level of effort necessary?
So, I mean, we've historically, as I guess most state DOTs have, a process where, we were using a paper form that was an Adobe form and was getting entered in, but the rudimentary information in terms of what work zone we had, and it was only being done by construction. So that, as my previous response, there was a lot of holes with only having construction projects listed. So we felt that creating a user-friendly tool was beneficial in that we had a better what kind of work we're doing, when and where, and also, I guess, going back to that question on the state police, the ability to get enough details to support all the work we have. This will help us better plan with them as well, where we need resources.
Have counties or cities in Massachusetts expressed interest in adding their roadways, as most motorists do not care whose roadway they are on?
So to date, we have not had the communications with the locals. Our goal is to master the freeway and interstate before we start turning to our secondary roads. So our secondary stairway network goes through a lot of those city and town roads. So you'll have a state numbered route that may be state highway in one section and then not state highway. So that's a future. That's hopefully we'll start digging into that for 2026. The good news is Wisconsin DOT jumped right into that this year, and we're getting some lessons learned from them that we will be able to employ here in Massachusetts.
How often do you plan to update traffic volume in the impact analysis tool, or is volume updated live?
Actually, currently configured is we will take the annual file So once we submit our highway performance monitoring system data to Federal Highway, that closes off our annual year of traffic volumes, and we will update the flow profile and load it to the system so that we're consistently making sure that year worth of data in there.
How much work is needed for the approval process?
So I probably glanced over it a little too quickly, but the approval process was also built with efficiency in mind. And with those different checks and balances that are built into the tool, which the requester, the end user, will see first. Once it gets to the approver basically sees all the different locations on that graphical interface with the map base, so they can see where the requests are. Because they have access to the historical information, they know what we've done in the past in that particular roadway. They have access to the traffic management or TTC plans for the project through a separate database. It's not associated with this. They can make those closures. But it really comes down to having defined time of day and number of lane type restrictions up front. That makes it a lot easier for our approvers.
All right, last question. Are you planning on testing out the connected work zone with different design parameters?
Ironically, we did a research project a year and a half ago with a local university testing out different work zone taper lengths, like as you mentioned. Right now, we are not planning to do that because we don't want to overcomplicate things, but we did inform that research university that we would like to do a second experiment with them, probably not till 2026.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we've run out of time. For those questions we didn't have time to answer, we'll be getting back to you via email. If you'd like to have a copy of today's slides, they are available to download under event resources on your screen. That concludes today's webcast. On behalf of Roads and Bridges, I'd like to thank Neil for sharing that great presentation. And I'd also like to thank ATSSA for sponsoring today's event. And of course, I'd like to thank all of you for joining. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.